Hello and welcome to the Claret and Blue podcast live on Wednesday morning at 10:30-ish. Now, just before we started, I said to John, should we start? And you went, yeah, go on then.
Yeah.
That's the vibe, isn't it, at the moment, still?
Yeah, it is. Yeah, it's pretty worrying, to be honest. What are we, 5 games into the season now? And I still haven't seen us really
do anything. Really.
Yeah. Okay, so what I would say from yesterday, just off the top, is that I think we did better in parts. This wasn't a terrible performance. By all means, it was still subpar, is how I described it. But you're not just playing a Brentford team who have lost all of their key players and the manager. You're playing a Brentford team who made 10 changes and they gave it a debut. This isn't we didn't I don't know, play Nottingham Forest away. It was still Brentford, and this was a poor Brentford team, and we failed to beat them. And yes, they only had really one moment, and it was a cracking goal, to be fair, from Aaron Hickey. And Villa had their chances. Sancho at the post. Cash had a decent opportunity towards the end of the game. But I'm not making those excuses. We're far beyond that now. Villa have really failed to impress. Really failed to go anywhere near their level of performance in the first 4 games. So we're not going to give them a pass in this match and say, well, we saw better things. No, we just got knocked out of the Carabao Cup in the 3rd round, and it's not good enough. And I think all the players will be aware of that for sure, as will Emery be. But the question is, we've known this for a few weeks now, and it's the first month of the season. Sorry, we're kind of just going straight into it, but I don't really see how else we can start. And that we need to see something, quite radically different and really quickly as well. So, I don't know, Dan. It feels like we're kind of doing these sorts of episodes quite a lot, but especially recently, it's become more of a trend now. I said to some of the reporters yesterday, although this is still the start of the season, like technically, because it's only so few games, it almost feels like you're giving Villa a bit of a pass by saying it's been a poor start. This is just now a trend.
This is what we are.
Are we going to see something radically different against Sunderland and Bologna and Fulham, Feyenoord and Burnley? Yeah, well, we need to, because they all in singular matches should be opportunities for Villa to go and win those games, but we've seen nothing to suggest that we're going to do that. And yeah, we might, but it's all well and good winning 2 of those games. For me, you need to be winning 3 or 4 of them. It's and I don't think we're in any position to be saying that that's going to be happening. So yeah, this is going to be another one of those podcasts, I think.
Yeah, if you've listened to any of the Claret and Blue podcast over the last 3 or 4 weeks, it's going to be a similar vibe. Obviously, we're done talking about the rules and the PSR and SCR and all that kind of stuff. Now that is largely irrelevant, really. It is now just about the on-pitch performance not being anywhere near good enough again. Couple of comments. AB, Alan Perry and Craig Bradshaw say good morning. Morning. Thank you for joining us, amongst the others in the chat as well. Already people getting their thoughts down as well. And we will use some of these comments today. As much as this is a chat, John, for you and I to talk about our opinions, as you said, we've done that. The episode we did on Monday, the Q&A, which if you've not seen, still go back and watch it. It's still relevant. The Brentford result does not change what we were saying. We have kind of said our piece because nothing's changed, right? So we're going to use some of these comments to kind of set the agenda for this chat. 49 Jeremy, first of all, says, am I the only one who thinks that we were better last night? We kept the ball in their half a lot more, and some patterns of play were there. We can only play what's in front of us and had green shoots. I think that's quite optimistic, to be honest, the phrasing of it. But I agree with it. It was better. But that's still not anywhere near the standard that we need to be to win the football match, first of all. Never mind string some wins together. I think Everton and parts of that game were a bit like, there's little bits of our old self there.
Yeah.
But nowhere near. Really.
No, I think that only goes to show how bad we've been, to be perfectly honest. I don't look at that performance yesterday and come away thinking, oh, well, we've been unlucky there. Again, this isn't... we haven't won 3 of our first 4 matches in the Premier League. We haven't scored in any of our 4 Premier League games. And obviously we scored yesterday, which was...
Even that should have been saved, come on.
Oh man, it felt so good. It felt so good to see the ball hit the back of the net. But yeah, we're not going to be ultra critical, but I think we can, that shouldn't be going in. We have made chances though, so I'll let it off if that makes sense. Like, Sancho's at the post, he probably should have scored.
That's
And
all, I
Cash
think.
is at the back post. Yeah, so, I think overall we deserved to score against Brentford, and we did. So that's great. But goodness me, such a low bar.
Yeah.
So no, I agree with so I forgot the name of the comment that flashed up. I agree, and I think it's kind of what we spoke about literally at the very start of the show. Of that's all well and good, but the facts are we haven't beaten Brentford twice in the first month of the season, and again, yeah, like I don't know, credit to Keith Andrews and his players for kind of galvanising after losing some players. But that's just showing that we have absolutely no excuse then with any financial rules, because we've lost one player and we've brought players in. We'll probably get onto it in this episode, but we need a refreshed squad. But we've kept our main core of players. Part of me thinks, well, was that actually not the right thing to do now? I don't know. We'll get onto it and chat about it soon. But just yesterday, yeah, it was better, but better is it's still not good enough, and clearly
No.
wasn't, because again, Brentford made 10 changes, and you could say, well, Villa made 7. Yeah, but we're bringing into the team players who would get into that Brentford side, probably the first 11 potentially as well.
Yeah. I've got in the title of this episode, Inside the Dressing Room, just to kind of talk about the mentality or the togetherness or potential lack of what we kind of hear from the club or hear from the players on social media. And, I've got no specific player and specific comment in front of me, but things that we've heard so far this season are things like, we know it's not been a good start, but when times are tough, we all have to stick together.
Yeah.
But I don't know whether we're even seeing that. I don't know if we're seeing a team that is fighting tooth and nail as a team to try and win matches. It all just feels like we're hearing one thing and then seeing another, if that makes sense.
Yeah, well, I think that this start to the season has probably been a big shock, to be honest, for our players. A shock for everyone. In fact, I don't think anybody, even the most pessimistic fans who would say that our business hasn't been good or there'll be a hangover or whatever, I still don't think anyone would think
Not
it would
this
be in
bad,
this.
no.
No, not this position. And again, for the players, I think it's probably been a shock, and that's why I think it's a case of where you can come out and say that it's not been good enough, but things will get better. But whether they need to get better, because again, at what point do we, like, we need to go to Sunderland and win. We're going to kind of jump through different hoops here on this podcast, but it just kind of set it out. We need to go to Sunderland and win, because if you don't, then again, where is the evidence that we're going to get better anytime soon? Yeah, we need a run of. Honestly, we need a run of results. I think that's what I'm trying to say. Like, it's all. We need to see something in the next few weeks, not just a one game or whatever it may be. This has to be a continued improvement. Sorry, that just Emery said after the game, like he thinks that Villa have improved and he's seen improvement. Okay, but if that's what he believes, we need to see results then now, don't we? Because it's all in good improving a little bit, but considering we were at such a low place anyway before that, this has to be a really sharp improvement, and consistent performances need to be coming now.
It does, and I agree. For me, the worry is things can be better against Sunderland and still not be enough to win the game, because the bar is so low. We can be slightly better again than Brentford, because parts of Brentford were slightly better than Everton, and that was better than Palace. And do you know what I mean? We could be better against Sunderland. Maybe we score again, and we do have a couple of moments where we think we're okay. But that being better could still see us lose the game 2-1. Whereas in previous seasons under Emery, if it's not quite working, but you're better at the weekend, you probably win the game, because that's the difference between a draw and a win. Whereas this is like, even just sort of scraping back to, like, it's almost like we're starting behind. Like, we're giving what, might as well go to Sunderland 1-0 down already, because that's like we go into the game feeling like that. So we've got to score even just to kind of get it back level, if that makes sense, from a kind of mentality point of view. It feels like we're up against it all the time. And we can kind of talk about this. We can kind of take this in two ways, kind of the tactical elements and the system and how we set up and how we play. But also then the players that play in that system also have to kind of do their bit as well. Because I don't think the system will change, do you? The style of play will still be the way we play. Patient, build up. We're not going to change that, are we?
No, I don't think so. I mean, you can kind of look at it at two angles and think that maybe we should change it, or is it are the players not? Are they as attentive to Unai as they were 2 years ago. I think that's to be a conversation as well.
Mm.
Again, something that we may get into. But no, you're right. We're going to Sunderland, and it's going to be a cauldron of noise. Sunderland will know that we're there for the taking. They need. I mean, we're desperate for points, but they really are, because they need to stay in the division, right? And they've won 2 home games so far, I think.
Yeah.
Got a good point against Palace. So this will be no game at the moment will be a pushover for Villa. Absolutely not. But even if we were kind of at our best level from last season or the year before that, I'd be going into this game still fearing that, okay, well, Sunderland, they're capable of something, and those feelings multiply when we're, again, nowhere near our best. And it's not just that we're not taking chances or whatever it may be. It's, as you say there, Dan, I think we do mentally look quite fragile, which, to be honest, can be expected, because I think this has come as a shock to everyone, and I don't think we've expected it. It's, I don't know.
Do something about it. It's on you, isn't it?
Oh no. It's no excuse, but I'm trying to paint a picture of what's going on here. I think maybe if we had sold a few players in the summer, naturally the players who remain will probably feel like, okay, we need to group together, because nothing's a given, because we don't know if these new players are going to hit it off like Ollie Watkins or Morgan Rogers or whatever, who in a hypothetical world might have gone. Do you know what I mean? But instead they've stayed, and everyone probably feels a bit, not relaxed, but okay, well, we've kept our squad, all together nicely and whatnot. But those players, did they have that burning desire again to go again after what was a really difficult or disappointing end to the last season? Listen, we needed a freshen up in the summer, but we simply couldn't do that because of the rules unless we sold off players. And at that time, I didn't see many people saying, "Oh yeah, we need to sell Morgan Rogers, we need to sell Ollie Watkins, we need to sell all these players." I know some people.
No, we deemed it positive to keep that unit together.
Yeah, Ollie Watkins was probably more divisive when people were saying, "Oh no, we should have sold him." But I'm saying Morgan Rogers, because that would make a huge amount of money. For me, I don't think Watkins would have made much. We saw Ramsey go for 40 million pure profit, and we spent 0. Yeah. Martinez obviously as well, like in the shop window essentially, but no one came and gave a reasonable offer for him. So it's not as if we had we had lots of teams interested in our players, but what amount of money would be able to make? Anyway, the point I'm trying to make there is that we obviously went with continuity, which I think I certainly said, and I wouldn't tell you otherwise. I said that was a good thing. Seeing what we're seeing so far, I'm not convinced it was in the end. But then what was the alternative? I don't know Villa's books exactly. Would it be the case of, if you sold X, Y, Z, you would have had this amount of money to play with, and you would have brought in these players? And how would that look? But one thing's for sure is that we definitely need a freshen up, and we just didn't do that, or couldn't do that, whichever one you want to look at it from. Other clubs can do that. They can replenish players different, but like Man United, for example, as we all know, they have a stinking season, but they can completely change their forward line at the tune of, I don't know, £200 million or something. It's obviously something that we can't dream of doing.
Oh, God. I know. So a few comments I want to go through. Craig, first of all, says, almost every individual player has more to give. Yes, we can question tactics, but we're not doing the basics. Low confidence, no trust in colleagues, and no percentage football. I think, again, that's bang on for me. And this is kind of comes back to what I was saying about, is it tactical or is it personnel? One, it's probably both, isn't it? There's problems across the board. But there's just, and we've definitely said this before, and I still can't put my finger on it. Something doesn't look right about us as a team, as a unit, as a squad, whether it's confidence, first touch, bravery to go and win a ball, to take on a shot. Something about us looks like we're playing within ourselves, and we're scared and we're timid, and it's almost, do I risk putting that ball in and maybe losing possession and being counted on and we concede? Or do I recycle the ball and we go back to the keeper and we try and start again in that nice, familiar, cozy, we know how we play in that little system. Sometimes you've got to be brave and try something different. And we're not seeing that. And some of that is confidence, absolutely. We know that footballers need confidence, and you want to feel strong and I can go and make a difference, because we need them to go and make a difference. Players like Rodgers go and change the game. I think when he came on, he had did a little turn or a little 1-2 around somebody. It was like, oh, there's a little spark of the Rodgers that we know and love. That's not enough. You've got to do that consistently throughout a game to make a difference. But it is that kind of like, we're playing in like a shadow here. We're really like trying to hide a little bit.
Yeah, confidence it looks shot. Absolutely true. I think it's obviously lots of different things. I think tactically, yeah, absolutely. That's partially to blame as well. We are predictable, and I think that we have some players who are predictable themselves. And I even include, or I would even include maybe a Sancho and Elliott in that as well. Because if teams want to set up as a low block or whatever it may be, those players aren't going. They might pick the lock, but those players aren't going to, as Unai says, be aggressive 1-to-1 like you'd have in Leon Bailey a couple of years ago or Diaby. I don't think they frighten defences, so I think you can question some of the recruitment as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
But no, yeah, I kind of go back to what I said before about I think this has all come as a big shock to a lot of our players, and therefore confidence has been hit quite badly. And again, we're not in those meetings at Bodymore, but it's human nature, I think, sometimes to when you are listening to the same voice over and over and over again. I think, yeah, there's a fair chance that effect can be worn off a little bit. And I say a little bit because maybe it's, I don't know, it was kind of 100% like 100% motivation, what Unai Emery's doing at the very start, and that's continued. And maybe it's like 95 now. Do you know what I mean? People can make their own minds up there. So I'm not saying that he's lost players or anything like that. That's not what I'm saying. But just naturally, when you're hearing the same thing all the time, and importantly, it doesn't get results, that's when I think you're in a bit of a sticky situation. So it's there for the players and Unai to work out, but ultimately we haven't seen that yet. And it's this is now a situation that has to be changed like radically and now. I don't think it helped, to be honest, that a lot of players went away on international duty. That felt like we all said at the time, didn't we? Okay, well, this is the period to sort of revise what's happened so far and take stock. And big changes are needed because we knew that this would only be a continuation moving on. Because what we'd seen was, we saw very little at all. It was only one chance I think we had in 3 games for Ollie Watkins. Against Everton, we didn't really have a chance either. Against Brentford, yeah, we made chances, but again, because we've been so poor, you're not going to give them the leeway to suggest that, oh yeah, that's why we should have won. It's 10 changes for Brentford and we couldn't beat them. It's just obviously not good enough. So yeah, for me, a lot of what we're saying is kind of half complete, if that makes sense. Let's see what Sunderland brings. If we don't turn up against Sunderland, okay, well that's a massive problem then. We're talking mentality, we're talking confidence, because Villa, they're not in a fight or a battle as in to stay in the league. It was so early in this season, but we do need to now fight to keep our league aspiration alive. We're going to be cut adrift already if we don't win at the weekend. So there's that as well. Like, we don't want this season to fizzle into what, God, I'd take winning the Europa League. But in terms of what Tottenham and Man United did, you can see that maybe that would be a situation. I'm not saying we'd finish 17th, but in terms of the league's not gone, but Unai, obviously, these big meetings, massive preparations for these matches. But we know that the Europa League is actually our main target. And this is all a bit flat and it's kind of a bit samey. We can't do what we did last season or the year before because we don't have the personnel to do it potentially. It's, I don't know. It just feels like, yeah, I'm struggling, to be honest, to see positives. And this can change if you beat Sunderland.
Yeah.
But then it has to continue. That's kind of my point. And I'm not seeing enough to suggest that we're going to win 3 games in a row, let alone score a couple of goals in a game. So it's difficult.
It's interesting you mentioned about like the players and the meetings, and it just like boring's the wrong word because we're not in them, but you know what I mean. I'm going to use boring as I've heard this before. Even like pressers, right? We want to be demanding, we want to play in our own way, we want to control. If you've listened to one Unai Emery press conference, you've pretty much heard them all, right? And that's me being really kind of brutal about it. When you've been in those team meetings for 3 years, I think Thomas Frank said that he kind of picks his team and then he feels like he's got about 15 minutes to say what he wants. Otherwise, he starts losing people. And he's like, shut up now. Like, I need to kind of get this message across. If you're sat in a 2-hour meeting, you've kind of heard some of the same things before. Do you start to feel a little bit like, this is obviously hypothetical because you're not in those meetings. It's like I'm asking you, how do you feel when you sit in these?
It's human.
But
it's
you
human
kind of feel
nature,
like, I've heard this before and currently right now, it isn't working. When it is and you're winning, you kind of go, tell me anything. Like, I'll have it because it's working. Fair play, gaffer.
Yeah.
Whereas now when you're being told to keep doing that thing, You must be thinking, well, I'm doing that and it's not working. What are we going to do about it?
Yeah. Just from the top, we're not questioning Emery as a coach. Like, the guy's an absolute genius. We've said it before. It'd be so fickle of us to now suggest that, oh, well, maybe these managers do it better. That's rubbish. We know that.
Because if he had a new squad of 20, that it was all new to them, would he get a fire lit in those? Probably, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the point we're trying to make here. We needed to freshen up, and we, again, couldn't, wouldn't, can't, whatever it may be. But that is how I would probably view it, as some of these players as well. Ollie Watkins was essentially dropped by Emery for the Champions League games against PSG. He clearly favoured Rashford in those moments. Has that had an impact? I don't know. You're scratching around looking for answers, and unfortunately, none of them are particularly clear cut. And even worse, there's quite a few reasons to suggest why we've started like this. So yeah, it's, again, I just think it's come as a shock to the players, whether that's an excuse or not. Well, no, God, it's not an excuse at all. What I'm on about. But for Emery as well, to kind of get them not back on side, but to get them in the right groove and to instill confidence, all those different things. I think that's a much harder job than it probably seems, even after everything that's happened, because everyone trusts Emery as a genius tactical coach, whatever it may be. But now I think we're going to see, or this is now going to be another test of Emery's managerial credentials, because now we're working with a group of players who have, many of which have been here for a long time, many of which have played under him for a long time, and many of which now shot of confidence. And again, we're not watching a team that's anything like the best Villa, anything really in some parts of the start of the season, anything like mediocre Villa. It's been really poor. And what's so frightening about it is that we have quality in the team. I think the only kind of mitigation you would say that, well, Kamara didn't play against Palace and didn't play against Everton, and you obviously had Nana out as well. But this is why you have a squad. So I'm not going to kind of use that too much as a reason why we've started so badly. We still have depth. We still have two midfield players on the pitch, one of which is your captain. So, yeah.
There's a comment here from Danielis who says, we can't just buy him a new squad every 3 years when players get tired of him. I think you kind of can. Not an entire squad, obviously.
Yeah.
But I think you would expect, and we're not going to do this research on the fly, but other squads in the Premier League that are competing at a top level. So say, if you looked at all the top half teams over the last 5 or 6 years,
probably signed 5 players, some of them.
I think they'd all have more squad turnover than we've had in the last 3 or 4 years. And I know that's a fact, because of how many times do people say, oh, we've still got 16 Smith signings and blah, 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 blah. This is a Gerrard side. You would expect, we've got him on the bench, Gesson, Sancho, Marlon. We've had players, Maatsen and Nana, that have been signed under Emery and haven't played enough. So that's one part of it. I get that. But we're still working with a side that has been here for a long time.
Yeah.
And I think other sides during that time, about two or three seasons, is where you do replace a few. And you're going to have to see that probably next summer anyway. One, because we could have had a poor season. I was about to say we're going to have one. We could have a poor season. But you've got players that are getting to those ages of McGinn, Dean, Martinez, Mings, Watkins, where they're probably coming to the end anyway. So you do need a refresh at some point, and you do need new energy and new thoughts and new style. And we simply haven't had that. Now, I'm not for 1 minute excusing that's, oh, go on then, go and be crap then. Like, you're still good players and you still got to go and do it. You're being paid by Villa to play football, so go and play. But I can understand why that would feel a bit like we just need something different and we haven't really got it. However, as I said on Monday, I am hoping that something different will be Elliott and it will be Sancho and it will be Gesson in time. At the moment, though, it is just same old, same old.
Yeah, and to kind of elaborate on your point there about our squad is filled with players who haven't been signed by Unai. Or sorry, the first 11. I think that's also a big issue. We've signed players for Unai or Unai has signed players even that haven't really, or at the moment anyway, aren't showing the level that we need and that he needs. So, I don't know. Even like Pau, for example, had a fantastic probably year and a half as a Villa player. and now is struggling, I think, a little bit. Onana and Maatsen, you can't sign in this climate. We can't sign a 35, 37 million pound left back and not play him all the time. And we can talk about whether he's a quality left back or not. I think you have to. We're not in that state, so that has to work. And judging by how many starts Maatsen has had, we haven't seen him develop. Sorry, as much as I think we'd like to, or Emery probably thought he'd get out of him. Onana as well, injured most of the time and not available. I really like the profile of player, and I do see a lot in him. But simply, if you can't stay fit, then we're not going to see that, are we? So we can go elsewhere. Even like Diaby, for example, we'd like to sell him for reasons, but Emery said at the time it wasn't quite the player that we needed at that point. It's
that's Marlon now, isn't it?
Right. And Marlon, of course, that's the big one. And again, I think he just cut a lonely figure yesterday, and I kind of cut him some slack because, like Watkins against Everton, lack of service. But when he did receive the ball, there was just nothing there. There was no confidence. There was no energy. It was kind of like it's like a reflection of the Villa team in general in Marlon, to be honest.
I wanted to talk about a couple of individuals, and he was one of them. That it's very easy when things aren't working to look at the bench and say, "Well, why isn't Marlon playing? Give him a go. He looks all right." You giving him a go, and he wasn't all right. Like, there's a reason that these players aren't playing. They're clearly not impressing Emery in training, or he doesn't think they're good enough, which is a humongous problem in itself. As you just said,
this is it. But we can't afford to make these mistakes, considering how restricted we are.
This is why you can't really moan about it. We spent the money and we've spent it wrong.
Gesson and Marlon cost 50 million quid. Onana and Maatsen cost 85, 87 million pounds. Those are still big outlays. I know there are 4 players that I've mentioned there rather than 2, which most clubs can, or even just 1 player for 87 million pounds. But the point is that you can still get quality for that cost. These are all international footballers,
and they should all be better than they are, to be fair, as well.
Yeah, and I say Gesson is at the very start of his career, so we're not going to kind of dig him out. I don't think he's played particularly well at the start of his Villa career, but that can quickly change. We've how many games he played? Like 3, 4 maybe. So. But the point being is that those are still big outlays, and those players need to work. So what's frustrating is that we can't make mistakes in the window like other teams. They can spend £60 million on a player and then not play, and it's fine. Doesn't matter. Just we'll replace them when we get the time to do so. Villa can't do that. They're, for want of a better word, like stuck with them. They're stuck with that. I'm not going to call those players a mistake in terms of transfers. Maybe transfer fees, maybe some of them overpriced, but. You see my point. We have to get the recruitment bang on, and I don't think that has been the case. And again, I look at the summer business that we did. Bizzo, I think, is a tick. Gesson, obviously unknown, really, but £30 million. That's a deal rising to that's still big money for us. It's the only money we spent. Harvey Elliott is going to be £35 million. I think he's a very good player, but needs specific things around him. I don't think we have that. Jadon Sancho, again, you'd put him in the unknown because he's only played 1 match for us. Could have scored yesterday. Apart from that, kind of came in and out. But again, we'll wait and see. And then Lindelof is a free transfer and is now unfortunately injured for a few days. But
the couple I wanted to talk about were Gesson and Sancho just as the newbies.
Yeah.
2 different performances, and I'm again not going to read too much into it massively. It was a poor game overall, and it's 1 game. Gesson, part of him looks like really intriguing, but in a bad way. Raw is a good word, but it's also a cop out for not very good yet. I also think sometimes. I'm not saying that that's your version of it, but bit of a wild card. Could be good, could be crap. They're raw. Then, well, no. Sometimes they're going to be awful, very flaky.
Yeah, I think. Sorry, just on Gesson, the fact that he scored so many goals in Ligue 1 last season. Again, I didn't watch him closely, but I don't think you can get that amount of goals and be a bad player.
No, I'm not suggesting he's a bad player at all. I think he will be good for us. A couple of good runs and stuff. I was like,
I think it's confidence.
The alarm bells that are ringing for me at the moment, or the positive alarm bells, if that's the right way to phrase it, when we're not good is, that was different. And it's like a little running behind. Like that, it's a bare minimum, right? It's just something different. Yeah. So a couple of things and guess on, you're like, oh, there it is. Oh, that's something a bit different. And then he'll take a couple of touches and go, oh, Christ, that was bad. Like, touches nowhere near. What's going on here? Like, again, maybe confidence, whatever. I kind of park that.
Yeah.
Sancho on the other side, not a winger, as we knew, he's not going to hug the touchline. He wants to come inside, fine. But that, I think, was also just little moments of little quick feet, little 1-2. Just again, it's so basic.
I know.
But just something that is okay. Well, whoever was playing out on the left side for us before, they weren't doing that. Now, is that the answer? Is that going to solve all our problems? No. But will like a little bit of a change of thought or a change of pace help a little bit? Yeah, maybe. Like he's hit the post, could have scored. If we win that game and Sancho's the winner, the match winner, it's like, oh well, okay, different. Yeah, okay. Let's see about Sunderland. The vibe does change.
Yeah.
But I am talking about scraps here of like ding ding. Oh, that was interesting.
Yeah, well, we're seeing different things.
He made a run.
Yeah, we're seeing different things. Will the different things be actually worthwhile in the end? I think that's essentially what he's saying. But what it is it's different solutions, right? We need to just see it on a consistent basis. And Emery said after the game as well, you know, we're working on combinations. Obviously, you can see Maatsen and Sancho, they have an existing relationship, don't they, from Dortmund. But ultimately, again, we are, you know, you're scraping the brow here because those players didn't beat Brentford. So we need to see more from everybody, not just the new signings. Everyone needs to set the game up. Yeah, again, starting with Sunderland, but they'll be buying. You know, we'll go there, and it will be very difficult. But equally,
it's exactly the kind of game that we lose.
Yeah, but equally, it's also one where I think we can swing it back in our favour a little bit. It's been a terrible start, but can we go there, show something? And I know beating Sunderland does not mean that this season's going to be a successful one. However, I think it would, how do I put it? That would go some way, I think, to not rectifying, because it's been terrible and there's no really excusing it, but I think it would go some way to pushing us back into a much more positive state. And then you've got Bologna, and then you go into that game thinking, okay, well, we're back at Villa Park, first European game. So goodness me, I'm trying to get on the positive bandwagon here. But just see what I'm trying to say? It feels like, well, I don't know, let's say we played Sunderland at home and we scraped a win like the Southampton game. This is nowhere near as bad as them, by the way. But when we beat Southampton 1-0, Jacob Ramsey scored and Gerrard is already on the, you know, he's already on his way out, really. It's nothing like that, but that kind of win and performance would be like a, you know, this doesn't mean much, but Sunderland would be almost like a bit of character building.
Yeah,
if you know what I mean?
That's what I was going to say. For me,
you go up there, 50,000, they're buying for your blood, but you show a bit that you haven't shown yet, and you can get out there with a win, and then you go to Bologna, and then you have another home game, then it's Feyenoord, then it's another home game, and there's reason to believe, okay, well, if we can just continue a bit of momentum here, we can go into that international break possibly with a few more wins. That's my positive outlook on it. But as we've said, there's absolutely no evidence to suggest we're going to beat Sunderland.
No, the reason I would say this is exactly the kind of game we lose. Big atmosphere, away from home, physical side, we'll work hard, we'll counter-attack us with pace. Loads of things there that frighten me as this current Aston Villa. So to go there and win would give me confidence of not just, we've won a game, happy days, we've got some points. We've done something that subverted my expectations of what this side I thought was capable of. I don't think they're capable of going there and winning at the moment. So if we were, it's more than just the win. It's, we've won at a place that I thought we weren't going to, and not in an Anfield Etihad way, a scrappy, horrible game kind of way that I don't think we're up for that fight.
Yeah, and again, the key thing here is that we need to put wins together. It's all well and good beating Burnley at home before the break. Okay, but what did you do before? Like, we need to put 3 or 4 wins together and really start, you know, pushing some sort of momentum. And that can start at a place like Sunderland, where, again, as you say, it's not backs against the wall, because, goodness me, we need to be beating this team. Like, you have to, whether you're good or bad, because ultimately it's a newly promoted team that won't be finishing above you as long as you play to your level this season. I've done it, haven't I, there?
Villa.
Yeah, but the point is that I think that can give you mentally a foundation to go with, if that makes sense.
Yeah, on paper,
It wouldn't just be a win. It would be, again, a bit of a platform then to suggest, okay, well, it's been terrible, but we've got out here with 3 points, and this was never going to be an easy game. We've managed to cope with it. And because we are so fragile at the moment, winning at Sunderland means much more than what it would do at the start of the season when you look at the fixture list and say, okay, Sunderland 3 points. That's how you do it automatically. But now we're not doing that whatsoever.
No.
So if you can get a positive result there, then that would hopefully be a platform, hopefully, to kick on. But again, right now, I don't think anyone even wants to kind of hear that. I think we're all sort of in that state of, this has been terrible and it's very miserable and it doesn't look like it's going to turn. But hey, football can change quickly.
I'm going to read a few comments. We don't need to respond to them necessarily because they're just emphasising things we've already said. So Sean says, Gesson looks far from being a Villa player at the moment. His touch is terrible. I agree based on last night, but I think there is something in there. Phil says, it wasn't the best of performances, but I feel excited to see Elliott with Watkins. He's definitely better technically than Buendia, but has the same attitude to track back. Also agree with that. I think Elliott will be a good signing for us. And I suppose on kind of fight from Steve. Hi, Dan. And John, we obviously have so many problems, but that soft, tame header by Powell was dreadful. In these worrying times, we need bravery and physicality, and Powell gives us none of that. And again, not a new story, is it? These are things we've kind of said for a while now. There's elements and personality traits that this squad requires, and we don't have.
Yeah, no, you're right. We're not built for this, if that makes sense. We're not. No one. Again, I go back to what I said. I think it's a shock. I don't think anyone's expecting this.
That can be a slippery slope, can't it?
Yeah, no, absolutely can be. And at the moment, we are one of the worst teams in the Premier League. There's no doubt in that. And what I would say as well, here's another negative. Goal scoring has been a major issue for us, obviously, because we haven't scored a goal. But defensively, our numbers are one of the worst in the league. And we've played...
Despite 2 clean sheets, that's not because of good defensive work.
Yeah, this is it. The underlying numbers suggest that we should have conceded, more goals than what we have. And we've played Newcastle without a striker. We've played Brentford, their first home game of the season, their second match under Keith Andrews, of all the players that they've lost. Everton, obviously, which, was, I think, in the end, you absolutely take, you always take a clean sheet, but you know what I mean? You kind of take that 0-0 draw in the end because I think we could have lost it. And then the other match, of course, is Crystal Palace, and we usually lose more heavily than 3-0, don't we? So, in a way, result. But yeah, but the underlying numbers suggest that our, expected goals against is, I think, second worst in the league. Burnley being the worst, but Burnley have had harder fixtures than us. So, we're not doing well now. We haven't played Liverpool. We haven't played Tottenham. We haven't played Man City. We haven't played Chelsea. We haven't played XYZ. We've played a group of teams who, at the start of the season, all of them you'd like to think would finish above. Newcastle maybe being the one that you'd compete with them. I suppose that was the plan. So yeah, and then again, next one's Fulham, Burnley, Sunderland. Again, matches that at the start you'd say you wouldn't settle for anything less than 9 points. And I'm not saying to do that now. I still wouldn't settle for anything more than 9 points. But do we expect to get 9 points based off this? No one can say that. So, kind of wrapping up that point. This is not going to be an easy middle part of the season either, because then you play Tottenham, you play Liverpool, these are the sides that are obviously better in quality than Brentford's changed 11.
Yeah. There's a lot of comments in the chat that are just people's comments. For the next kind of 15, 20 minutes, can we change that to questions? I want to answer some kind of quick fire-ish questions if people want to send those in. This one from Scott. Would you stick with Villa's tactics or try something different? 4-4-2, left footer, Maatsen left wing with Dean behind him. Right footer, Cash, right wing with Concert behind him. It can't get much worse, can it?
It can.
It can. Yeah, I mean, if we play an 11 with Dean and Concert as the fullbacks and Maatsen and Cash as the wingers, I will stop watching. I think that's horrible.
Yeah, there's no way. We don't sign the attacking players that we have and then do that.
I think a 4-4-2 in some ways might be the answer. Not as rigid as what you're thinking, but the second striker, the Diaby role. Can that be Gesson and Watkins more dovetailing rather than him being out wide? Is there something slightly different about
that? Possibly. We defend in a 4-4-2, really, don't we? So it's not as if it'd be something completely different. To be honest, mate, I just, when you kind of play back in your mind in recent weeks about what you've seen and what you like and what may not work, I'm struggling so much to think of like just a forward line that would be effective right now. Do you know what I mean? I can put players in positions, but what we've seen has been so far from the level expected that I can't just pretend that, oh yeah, Morgan Rogers, Harvey Elliott, and Ollie Watkins and John McGinn, that's your best. I don't know, because we haven't seen it. Do you know what I mean? I can tell you what I don't think would work, but yeah, unfortunately, that's just where we are, because we haven't seen us score a goal in the league for for months, and obviously we had a summer break then. But yeah, I don't know. I think for Sunderland, what you would do is you would still play Watkins and Rogers, because against Brentford, we had that little chat, didn't we, on the sofa the other day, on the sofa, about, well, would you start Watkins even if Marlon scored? Marlon really didn't get a kick. He had 3 touches in the box. So for me, Watkins has to start. We had the conversations about, well, does Gesson lead the line? Again, people are criticising his first touch, as am I. So Watkins is your number 9. I think Rogers still has to play. I think we saw moments of him yesterday against Brentford that were more like his normal self. There was that moment where he turned, forced the keeper into a save, and maybe could have even done better there, Rogers. But that was more like it. I think Harvey Elliott has to start. He scored. He looked pretty lively.
Yeah.
And then I guess John McGinn goes in there as well, because to be fair, I actually think he played well last night. And again, low bar. I think he can improve too.
What about this as a system
against Sunderland as well? You need. I think you need that. You need players who are going to fight, because that's going to be the battle. It's a fight.
I'm slightly concerned in my head here. I've got one too many players, but if you've got McGinn and Kamara in midfield,
yeah,
you've got Watkins and Gesson kind of as a second striker, Rogers left and Elliott right.
Yeah,
does that work?
Yeah, that's essentially a 4-4-2. What you're doing there, aren't you?
Yeah, but obviously Elliott and Rogers are going to want to come inside to support as well. Yeah. But it gets on next to Watkins almost, rather than out wide. But is he that player? I don't know.
Oh no, absolutely. That's what he, at Nice he got his, kind of a career best. It was a fantastic campaign that he had. But right now, I don't think he's ready to be thrown into that situation, because again, he's can't get his first touch right. It's a bit erratic, right? I think that's what we're seeing at the moment. I think he needs a bit of time to settle in, which is fine. Yeah. I'm not going to criticise that, but Villa aren't obviously in a position to really wait very long. Yeah, I don't know. Part of me thinks that Bogard maybe should start again alongside
what did you
Kamara.
Think
maybe
because there was 2 comments that came in a row before. One was man of the match, and one that he was terrible.
No, I didn't have him as a man of match. Bogard's a player who I see a lot of potential in. And I think some games I'm 50-50 on with this. This has to improve. I.e., sometimes he can have a loose touch, and he's a bit. I think if you applied a lot of pressure to Bogard and essentially man marked him, I think would be in a bit of trouble when he receives the ball. I don't think it's too comfortable. But then I think he reads the game very well, and I think that's testament, because he can play across a number of positions. Emery, you don't play for Unai Emery if you don't read the game well, especially in those positions. So there's a lot that I like about him. I think he just needs a bit of refinement. But at the same time, again, if I'm looking at this Sunderland game, I need John McGinn on the pitch for sure. In what position? And I don't mind playing Bogard with Kamara if it means pushing McGinn up a little bit. Because if it's not McGinn playing, who is it? It's Marlon, Gesson, Sancho, or if I miss it, or Buendia. I don't know. Maybe Buendia gets the nod.
I mean,
and then
all of those
Kamara.
options at the minute now. I just think any of them. Does it even matter? Or any of them? Is any one of them any better than the other? Is there a standout candidate amongst those 5?
Well, again, I think it depends what you're doing with the team. But my point is just I want McGinn on the pitch. But then it depends. Do you put him in a double pivot, where actually I think he's done probably better this season? Or do you bring in Bogard and push him higher? Or do you have McGinn and Kamara? And then for me, I'd probably put Buendia as the 10 and then have Rogers and Elliott wide of him. Because against Everton, if nothing else, he was a player who was busy. And against Sunderland, we're going to need those legs. We're going to need that energy. We're going to need that fight and determination. I think if you're going to bring in someone like Sancho, it's not a criticism of him after playing just one game, but I think you lose something by not bringing in those players. But anyway, that's for a preview potentially. But we should not be sitting here. And I hate to say this about Buendia. We shouldn't be sitting here at the start of the season for Sunderland and saying I'd probably start Buendia. That really shouldn't have been on the cards. Again, happy for him to be in the squad. I think he's got a role to play, but in a game that we need to win, and we're turning to a player who, Villa were obviously happy to lose last season and could have gone again. Prove everyone wrong, Emmy. Absolutely, that's what we need. We're crying out for it, but at the same time, no one, I don't think, thought this would be the situation. I'm sure there were a lot of people also saying that Buendia shouldn't be starting against Sunderland, but again, what we saw from Gesson yesterday, it's not enough. We need more. Sancho, again, he's not fit enough to really play games consistently at 90 minutes at the moment. So, oh man. Come on, Dan. Here was something positive. Come on.
Well, we've got 6 questions and 15 minutes to get through them. So we're going to have to be quick fire here. And there isn't much positivity, I'll be perfectly honest. We will chat about Sunderland in a preview on Friday or Saturday, with the game being Sunday. That'll be you and I again, so there's no point doing anything about that really too much here. Jay Collette says, would we get 10 million for Onana now?
Oh, God, yeah. Oh, no, definitely, yeah.
You'd still get a decent fee for him, but the point is he's not worth 50 million right now. Nowhere near.
I don't think he ever was a £50 million player, but you're buying the potential, right? You're buying what you could get, which, makes him a £50 million player, I suppose. But there was.
But the theory was you pay 50 for him now because one day he might be worth 70 or 80. What you're really hoping for.
That's people that we spoke to about Onana, it was always that was essentially what came up. This guy could become anything really, but injuries are really going to hold him back, and especially for the midfielder that he is. So, no, God, yeah, we would definitely get. You
get about 25, I think.
I think you get more, to be honest. But we're talking now as opposed to next summer. How many games has he played? What level has he played at? Is he being consistent? I think if he plays really well this season, then I think you get pretty much what you paid, to be honest. Still young. But then if he is going to be injured for another 12 games this season, then unfortunately that's you'll be making a loss here.
Shadow says, do you think the players are bored of Unai? Kind of touched on this already, haven't we? I think there's a possibility, some of them might do.
I think bored is a strong word. Again, as we mentioned earlier, if he had 100% buy-in from the players at the start of his reign and after that, I don't know what, on the kind of scale, where would you put it now? It could be 90. That's still very high. But you need to be absolutely locked in for Unai, don't you? You need every single detail to be right, else it doesn't work exactly how he likes. So, it has to be 100% for me. And I think we're definitely seeing that it's not that. And I don't know why that is exactly. But again, I think it's just human nature that if you're hearing the same thing and it's repetitive, then of course it's going to be... kind of more mentally taxing, I suppose. And again, because the results aren't going well, this is the first real period where it's been bad. And what I would also add is that last season we had a bad period, but we managed to refresh the squad with Asensio and Rashford. Disasi came in to at least take off the load from Konsa and other players. And when they returned, it was happy days. They can play until the end of the season, but especially Rashford and Asensio, that was a new lease of life for us. We can't forget as well, Duran saved us for 3 or 4 or 5 games last season as well at the start. So I'm not saying those things. I'm not saying that was luck in terms of Duran saving us and those players coming in, and it was a bit of a stroke of genius in the transfer market. But now, if you're asking us to repeat that, okay, so what players are we going to bring in January, and then who's going to be who's the guy scoring these goals? So far, that hasn't been the case. Maybe this would be what happened last season, and we wouldn't have beaten West Ham. We wouldn't have beaten Leicester, and whatnot. So I don't know. Maybe we should have seen this kind of coming a little bit, that there would be a drop off. But because it's been so sort of dramatic and quick, and it's at the start of the season, it just feels a lot worse.
McGinney Esther says, do you think Emery would take the Man United job when it becomes vacant?
I think any manager walking into Old Trafford's asking for trouble, to be honest with you. I also don't think that they would be going for Unai, to be perfectly honest. I think there's other managers who they would probably review and assess before then. But hey, I don't know. We'll find out if they try and make a move. But ball's in Villa's court because he's just signed a new long-term deal. Taking a lot of money to get him out of the club and all those different things. So, yeah.
Saiful says, "Can Villa do a Spurs?" I genuinely think that's what will happen this season. So win the Europa League and not do well in the league. I think there's a good chance we might not do that well in the league, and we don't win the Europa League. I'd say that's more likely at the moment.
Well, it's again, like, yeah, put it this way, and we kind of mentioned this before. With every passing day, the Europa League is becoming the only kind of target because we don't look like we're up for it in the league at this point.
Yeah.
But then you would also say, well, if you can't score in the Premier League,
how are you going to win a trophy?
Who says you're going to win a trophy? Yeah, exactly. So
they're two things that completely go against each other, which is why what Spurs did shouldn't really be allowed to happen. Not allowed, but you know what I mean? You shouldn't be able to be that bad in one competition, but then turn it on in another. Yeah, I'm not suggesting Villa will do that. Sorry. I feel like Villa might finish 10th or 9th and not be in Europe, but then they could also quite easily not win the Europa League as well. And then we're out of Europe altogether for the first time in 4 years.
Yes, Spurs did change their team quite a lot, didn't they? I think they literally played a second team for the Premier League games. So that's why their form was so bad. I think in the end they probably could have finished more towards the middle part of the table. But I don't know. Maybe the Europa League allows Villa to kind of, I don't know quite how to explain it, but maybe not catch teams off guard. But you're not playing against the same managers and players that you play against weekly. And Villa, I think, have become quite predictable for a lot of Premier League teams. But for the Europa League, it's something different. I don't know. Maybe that'll play to our advantage. Emery's obviously won the thing 4 times, so this is kind of what we said before about even if Villa get so terribly poor in the league, not relegation trouble, but it's a terrible league campaign with with bottom half, whatever it may be. I don't know. Well, still, you have a manager who's won this competition more than anyone else, I think. And this is your best chance of success this season. I think everyone would say that the Europa League is our best chance of success this season.
100%.
So
I remember you saying last year in like a preview or something we did of when you go to the European games, and obviously it was Champions League, flashy, but it all just feels different to the Premier League. It's the brand is different, the commentary team is different, whatever, everything about it is different, and that can kind of psychologically give you that bit of a refresh. Okay, forget that, we're now in this new flashy thing now. And that didn't work for the Carabao Cup yesterday, but obviously slightly different. But again, just being away from the Premier League, the brand, the teams that you recognise, and I mean, Bologna and Young Boys we recognise, but some of the others of new opponent, different thing, different music, different branding, like it's all just, does that help you kind of reset and feel differently about it?
For me, I think not in terms of the work I'm doing, no one cares.
You could play, to be honest, mate.
I don't know, maybe for fans as well, but there is definitely, it's very different. But then for the players, are they doing the same routine though? Like obviously they stay in hotels and whatnot before matches. The only difference is that they're going to jump on a jet for a period of time before landing and then being in a hotel again. Like I don't think it's that dissimilar for them in terms of their routine, essentially. But I think again, this is a mental game of, well, we are playing for 3 points in the league phase, but we're not playing for 3 points in the league, and we have pressure because we need to jump up to 12th or whatever it may be. I don't know. But in the league phase, obviously we need to win games, and ideally you finish as high as you possibly can to get those home legs in the second, be at home in the second legs for the knockouts, right? But ultimately we just need to get through, and for that I think there's less pressure. But yeah, I don't know. Maybe that can again help us as the season goes on, and that would be maybe a way to get confidence if we can beat the likes of Tel Aviv at home and whoever else would Go Ahead Eagles. Again, we have no right to do any of this at the moment, but maybe that can help us in our league season as well. But it's just no one can dress up the start we've had. It's been really miserable, and yeah, it needs to change and change quickly. So Sunderland, Bologna, Fulham, Feyenoord, Burnley. It's a nice run of games, but we're a nice team to play.
Yeah.
So that's the problem.
6 minutes, John. 3 questions. Connor says, do you think our recruitment has been poor because of Emery being in charge, constantly picking slow central players rather than wingers? And we said, didn't we, about we haven't got wide players. That's clearly a choice. Like, it's not that there are no wide players on the market. We're clearly not signing them because the plan is not to play in that way. And that's because the manager wants to play in that way. And on paper, that makes sense, right? Why give a manager the tools that he doesn't want? Why sign him wingers if he physically does not want to play them? However, it's when people say, like, change the manager, need something fresh. Well, if the new manager comes in and he wants to play wide attacking football, Villa ain't got that. They ain't got it in their locker to be able to actually go out and do that. We've built this team in the kind of image of this manager.
Which I find that mad, by the way. We don't have wingers.
But if he doesn't want to play them, it would be a complete waste of space, wouldn't it?
I know, but we have wide forwards. We have left ourselves short in terms of our squad building, I think. But yeah, no, I think that is part to play because we've heard it before from Damian and other people that it's, Villa have got a big job in their hands to get around these rules and bring in players and swap players out. But ultimately, they need to be liked by Unai. And that's obvious for any manager. You can't buy a player if the manager don't want them. But maybe Unai has too much power, really, in terms of players coming in. And, again, one part of me thinks, well, that should be how it is because you need players that are going to succeed under this manager. But at the same time,
like a sporting director model, you'd be going, we've signed a load of players that the manager clearly doesn't want.
I think you need a balance, essentially. That's the key point because, as you said there, Dan, well, if even in, let's just say next summer, there's a change of guard or whatever it may be, just plucking something out of the air. That team is set up only for Unai Emery. This is his vision. You'd have to bring someone in who would have the similar sort of plan. So, yeah, I think partially that is to blame for a poor recruitment, that the manager has a lot of power or maybe too much power in terms of who comes into the team. But at the same time, because he's done so well, I don't think anyone really looking at it and thinking.
No one was saying that was a bad thing when we were finishing the Champions League, were they?
Yeah. So it's hindsight, right? But at the same time, there always needs to be a balance when things don't go well, because it's going to be pretty easy to point at some of the players we have signed and say, why did we do that? And again, the restrictions, we can't really afford to make these mistakes.
Two more. Phil, do you think Sancho and Maatsen could be a good pairing like Grealish and Target were? I'm pretty much holding my hat on those two players being good for us and changing the left-hand side.
Yeah. No, and I think that is probably the second positive of the. Oh, Jesus Christ! One of very few positives was that. I think there was, again, green shoots on that left side. That these players, they know each other. Is that just because the rest of the team was so out of sync? I don't know. It's hard to judge, really, but. Yeah, Sancho definitely has technical quality. He's just not match fit yet, and I don't think he's particularly quick at all, which is a bit of a concern. But when you add Maatsen to that, that could be a combination that definitely works for us. So, yeah, we'll stay positive on that one.
And then finally, Jay Collette again. Does John think the report yesterday about Villa failing SCR in 2025, is that worrying? Do you have any insight? I assume you'll have written about this, or you're going to.
Well, yeah, we've been writing a lot about where Villa stand and with the rules. Yes, it's worrying, and where UEFA have how do I put this? How UEFA have got us essentially. This is it's a very difficult situation for Villa, and they are being super tight, super strict to the point where I'm not totally sure it really would have been possible for us to get to where they wanted us to be without making an incredible sacrifice. So I think this was always essentially on the cards, or will be on the cards. And again, it just leaves you to think, well, next summer, where are we going to be? How are we going to be able to fulfill these wants from UEFA, but also build a squad that's
we
that's
might
good
not
enough?
be in Europe, so don't worry about it.
I know, but then, as we said yesterday, then when you get back in Europe, you got the issue again. So it's definitely worrying. I'm sure the club are worried about it, and they have to be. I just hope that and trust that it's what they're doing is sensible for long-term Aston Villa, should we say? What we have heard from within is that they are acutely aware that these are the rules that need to be followed, because there is essentially a European competition ban coming their way if they don't adhere to certain parts of the agreement, which are quite convoluted. So won't get into it now, but UEFA did publish this online. But yeah, this isn't a kind of slap on the wrist and Villa are fined. It's like serious stuff that they'll be kicked out if they don't follow exactly what UEFA want them to do over a period of time. So that's what we're playing with. They need to get the house in order with the squad, and it's very difficult to do, especially without Champions League revenue. And again, this is why this campaign is so important. And we started it so poorly; it just feels so flat. And again, I do think this is kind of, so we've gone over an hour now. This is partially a reason again, and I'm not bringing up the rules here. I'm just saying that I think this is also a reason why we are so flat. The players must be aware of that sort of situation. The club are obviously, having to make plans for it. There'll be players that are playing now that thought they were leaving for reasons whether they wanted to or not, and are now still here. How do they feel about that? It's such a messy situation that, again, I just think there's a lot of this. We can talk about tactics, we can talk about different things, but just the mental game at Aston Villa right now, it's very I think it's a very tricky situation, and I think that's basically bled out into the start of this season, and it needs to change really quickly. But yeah, again, this is Unai Emery's job now. We know he's a master tactician, but how does he flip it into kind of man management? I think that's a real test for him now.
Yeah. Okay, we've hit the hour mark. We did an hour on the Q&A on Monday as well, so we're going to call it there. 2 decent-sized episodes for you this week. We'll be back with an episode of Claret and Brew at some point tomorrow. We recorded that yesterday, and it's a complete mood change from current Aston Villa. It's full of laughs. It's full of some great stories from Kendrick from his press conference days. You probably will have heard a couple of them before, but a good little 30-minute package. So please keep an eye out for that if you want a bit of light relief. John and I will be back on Friday or Saturday for the Sunderland preview, and we'll have a post-match at the weekend as well. So thanks for tuning in live on this one, or watching/listening on Catch Up. John, thanks for joining me as per, and we'll see you tomorrow. Bye-bye.